No, no, people don't get it. You know, like a 110-pound girlfriend's good.
Yeah.
Why isn't a 110-pound bear good?
Right, even a 140 ain't that bad.
Eric Huseboe is an incredible bear hunter. He shoots black bears, he shoots brown bears, he shoots white bears. He's not prejudiced. He'll kill anything. We're going to start out this video with going into depth on the black bears that he's killed and what exactly went into the setups, what was the unique factors of each hunt that led to the kill. And then we're going to go into his brown bear hunt, and we're going to really look at, you know, what it takes to go after a 10-foot 4-inch brown bear with just a bow in your hand. And then when those hunts are done, we're going to go into his polar bear hunt. And we've got footage of the hunt, of the kill. It is incredible, with just a bow and arrow and pretty much no backup against a 1,500-pound polar bear. And then when that's done, we're going to go into depth about baiting bears and how you feed them and how the food changes throughout the season. You're not going to want to miss this, especially if you love bear hunting. So stay tuned.
So this one here is just one of them intriguing mounts. That bear has not a lot of super significance to me other than the way it went down. I watched this bear come in, and the mount actually, he looks a lot smaller in the mount because his feet are tucked together, for one. For two, we had to use that form to get that stance because I wanted the mount one on a tree stand, just so it was different. And anyway, that bear come out and he laid down, and I sat and watched that bear for about 4 hours laying 70 yards away. And he just sat and watched and watched and watched and watched. And all he was doing is, there was a really big bear, and we'll actually get to him down here because he died years later. But that bear, he was scared of the other big bears that were in that bait, as well as I think he just felt good at 70 yards, but coming into the bait. Anyway, when he come in, what it took was a smaller bear come walking in, and he come through. I was hunting with my recurve, and you know, a bear that pushes 300 pounds with a recurve is a trophy, and I don't care how many you've shot. That to me is a hell of a trophy, so I decided to harvest him. And obviously that's the mount we put together, just a little something off the wall, different. Yeah. Kind of getting bored with the same mounts over and over. This is an old sow. We've been hunting the same spot in Canada for, it's between 25 and 30 years now. And that old girl had been coming for years and years and years, and she always threw color. She was giving birth to a lot of color phase cubs. So we always put her off limits and just said, nah, we're not going to shoot her anymore. We called her Susie. Fast forward after 10, 15 years of having her there, she got dry. You know, she ended up being, I think that bear aged at 22 years old.
Wow.
We knew her so good that she had dried up, and she had an injury on her left foot. I don't know if she got caught in a trap, hit by a car, mangled by a boar. I don't know, but her left rear hoof, I believe, I think it was her left rear foot, was just mangled to shit. So she was limping real bad. And I made the choice that, you know, she provided us with a lot of bears through the years, a lot of entertainment, and I wasn't going to let the winter kill her, so I decided to harvest her. And she come back 22 years old, and I knew she was over 20. But yeah, that's not the biggest bear by any means, but a memorable bear, and we shared a lot of time in the tree stand together for years. That was a Maine bear, and if anybody's ever hunted Maine, it's not hard to tell that it's tough to shoot a big bear in Maine. And actually, I want to say it was like the 5th day of that hunt, when this bear come in, he was quite a lot bigger than I expected, actually. And I decided to shoot him. That was a testament, and you can't feel it because he's up there, but that bear's hair is probably heavier than any bear in here. And what I learned about that bear, I shot him with an expandable broadhead, perfect shot. What I learned about him, at the impact site, there was blood all over everything where I shot him. Then he took off running like a streak of shit down the hill, and I watched him cross the logging road and disappear. When we went to track that bear, obviously all the blood where I'd shot him was very prevalent, but there was almost no blood whatsoever. And I cut a 2 1/4 inch hole in him, and a big hole, like a fist size hole, in a great spot, cut his lungs. And trailing that bear, we had one hell of a time trailing him, just a pin drop every once in a while. I knew the bear was dead. I replayed the footage. The shot was absolutely gold. And really what I learned about him, and it took us finding him, which we found him, but it wasn't as easy as it should have been. When we got to him, we rubbed our hand down his hide, and blood ran off just like you were dumping a pitcher of water. That bear took off running so fast in that real heavy hair. He's running close to 40 miles an hour, 35, 40. That blood is not getting to the ground. It's actually going down his hair because he's going so fast. That hair essentially collected that blood. Now, was it going to wipe off eventually? Yeah, he was smearing on trees and doing all that because he had so much blood running down his side. But when it came to leaving it on the ground, when he was on that death sprint, there was hardly anything to follow. So make good shots on bears because they can get away. You know, even a decent shot can be really tough to track. I'm not going to sit and preach, use a mechanical, use a fixed blade, but I will tell you, if I'm shooting bears, average black bears will say, I'm shooting a mechanical. And I'm doing it for the hole. The other thing I've seen a million times is you shoot them perfect, you shoot them with a big range broadhead, whatever you shoot them with, you cut a giant softball size hole in them. And then what happens is the guts are the fat in the guts are very notorious for plugging that hole. That bear is bleeding. He's bleeding to death inside. It's not getting to the ground. Typically, that's what we've got to track with a bear is blood on the ground. So for that reason, I want the biggest hole I can cut in them. Now, I'm not shooting gobbler guillotines or nothing like that at them, but I also want a really, really good mechanical for a black bear, just to open them up for that reason. And they're soft. If you've ever seen bear ribs, they're dinky and soft. This bear here, that's my kid's first bear. I think he was 13. And that's the only one he ever shot. It's the only time he ever hunted them. That one's pretty special to me. He ain't the biggest again, but it was my young son's first one. And actually, that was a Minnesota bear. Shot him with a 20 gauge shotgun. And when I went tracking the bear, said he made a great shot, which every hunter does until he don't. Said he made a great shot. I went in, you know, just a couple, 2-3 rounds in the pocket, whatever. And tracking the bear, and he got up in front of us and come after us. Well, I shot him again with that shotgun that he was using. The bear kind of retreats a little bit. As he's retreating, I take another shot. Well, then I quickly realize I have no shells left. I send the kid back to the truck. He runs to the truck, grabs another box of these shells, comes back out. We find this bear laid up in the brush pile. Thankfully, I spot him far enough ahead. And it kind of came to a point where we just had to put a finishing shot in him. But very exciting hunt. A lot of memories in that one. Proud of the kid for doing it. He doesn't hunt much anymore, which is a bummer, but that's his choice.
This guy's a tank.
That one right there, that bear, the mount is actually half of what it should be. I hope we can get a clip of the actual footage of that bear over there. You can see what he really was. Anyway, this is a bear we called School Bus. That was the one I was talking about that kind of came here back in 2010 or 11 and stayed with us. We put the wife on him in 2014, September 3rd, 2014. We had him coming to a bait just up the hill here, about 400 yards. He was coming in pretty regular and guarding his bait. The bear was quite special because we found this out after shooting him, but he had a tracking collar on. I think it was 3 or 4 years old, they put a collar on him. They trapped him about 50 miles from here. We called him School Bus. And the reason is, well, obviously, just a massive bear. He's 657 pounds. The head on this bear was actually number 9 in the world, Pope and Young, for quite a long time. It's the biggest ever shot by a woman. And I don't know if it still is, but we don't keep track of that stuff, but I would be willing to bet it probably is, with a bow. So anyway, first night I was building this shop, and I'm pounding outlet boxes right on this wall, as a matter of fact, trying to be quiet because she'd walk by. She said she was going up to bear hunt. It was 97 degrees. She goes up, and by the way, anybody that thinks that when it's hot, don't hunt, wrong. We've killed more big bears when it's 90 plus degrees than when it's 50.
Me too.
That's not a joke.
Yep.
We're at 10 or 11 booners right now. I would say if we've shot 10, 9 of them have been 85 degrees and warmer.
Yep. Me too. I laugh at those people waiting for cold fronts all the time.
I cannot explain it. I still don't have a good answer why that would be. But hot don't deter me from shooting bears. It does not and never will. I've seen it too many times. This is another one. Of all the booner bears we've shot, 10 out of 10 were on a bait that had sows and cubs on it. And I get customers every day in the summer. I got a sow and cubs on that bait. I'm going to abandon it. And I'm like, dude, that's the
They might
worst
kick
thing.
little bears away. They're not kicking away a boar like
They're not
that.
kicking away a boar like that. But I think what it is it drives them sows and cubs drive the competition on that bait for these smarter, older, wiser bears that want to be very cautious and want to wait till midnight. They put pressure on them bears that, hey, if I don't get in there and get my damn food before dark, these little wallet draining crap factories that are coming are going to eat all my food. I'm going to get there. There's going to be nothing for me to eat. Now, in that scenario, it'll kind of revert back to what I said a little bit ago. Will that bear just move off and find another food source? Probably not. And the reason not is because I've acclimated and habituated him to that spot, that food, the quality, the volume, the dangers associated with it. He's very used to that. So a lot of times, that won't drive him away if that sow and cubs gets there. It just moves his schedule up where he says, okay, I can smell they were here an hour or two ago. I need to move my schedule up the next day. I think that puts pressure on these big bears to commit to things they don't want to commit to. So sows and cubs, hunt the hell out of them, in my opinion.
You remember what that thing squared?
No, we never squared the hide. The skull was 22 and 5/16 is what the head is.
Yeah, it's a pretty big bear.
Yeah, he is. And like I said, the taxidermy work, I hope we can get a picture, a video of the photos of him the week before she shot him. That shows you what that bear was. This is pathetic compared to what he was.
Sure.
He was just that long, but he was double in girth. Double. Guaranteed. So, disappointing taxidermy, but great memories and great bear. This guy here, think back to him. So this was a bear I shot in Canada. One of the aha moments for me in the spring. And I know that a lot of people, especially in Wisconsin and the places that don't have a spring hunt, this doesn't pertain to that. But it's the mentality of a bear that I'll try to get across here. So this bear, it was during the spring, it was during the rut, and we had a little chocolate sow that was coming. And I got a picture of that sow a few times, and she wasn't little. She was probably close to 200 pounds. And I remember the outfitter looking at it going, oh, that's a decent little chocolate boar. I said, I think that's a sow. Well, the next day, I had a video of him right behind that chocolate sow. So I said, hey, I'm sitting that spot the rest of the week. That's the bear I want to hunt. Well, needless to say, second, third, fourth day, whatever it happened to be that I was sitting there for him, sure enough, here come the chocolate sow. And the second I seen that chocolate sow, I'm like, oh man, where is he? I know he's close. Where is he? Because this is prime rut. Well, all of a sudden I hear a tree tip over, like somebody snapped a tree off back in the timber. I'm going, okay, he's coming, but he's a little behind. Well, I let her get down. She gets in the feed and she's starting to eat and she's really comfortable. And she kept looking back behind her where she come from. I knew that likely this is the bear that was coming. Sure enough, he appeared. I've got some cool videos of him standing up and scent posting on a tree about 4 yards from me. And I'm just frozen dead because I got two bears. One of them's less than 5 yards from me. I know he's a giant. I know I want to shoot him. I cannot move. I cannot shift my weight. I cannot get my bow up. I can't do a damn thing. Well, he got down from scent posting and circled all the way around me. How he didn't get my wind, the only thing I can guess is it was breezy enough that that wind was blowing over the top of him because he was so close to me. If he'd have been out another 15, 20 yards, I think I'd have been SOL. Because it was in the afternoon, so thermals were dropping. But we had a pretty stiff wind. And the way he came from, which he did a no-no. The cardinal mistake is to not use your nose for a bear. He was using his swizzle stick. And that's what got him in the predicament he is.
So that's a spring bear too, right?
It's a spring bear, yeah.
That's a huge bear for spring.
Man, he would have been a legit 6-something in the fall for sure. That's one thing that we see is if you've got a 300-pound bear in the spring, you can count on him putting on close to 100 pounds before fall. If he's 3-something in the spring, he'll be 4-something in the fall if you shoot him in the fall. And that's most of my black bears I shoot in the spring. I honestly do. I wouldn't say the most historically, but in the last 10, 15 years. I definitely I like the spring hunt because it brings guys like him out on their feet in the daylight that normally are going to be laying in the swamp till after dark. They're tougher to hunt in the fall. They just are. They don't have that element of the rut. And
Right,
that's why
they're
we
pretty
use-
sneaky. I mean, in the fall, you can have a bear like that coming in. You make one mistake and he's just gone.
It's over, and you won't see him again.
Right.
He's got you pinned. He maybe will come to that bait again, but he'll be 200-300 yards out in the timber, laying on you, knowing you're there. He'll smell you, and he'll just lay there and wait for you. to
Yeah,
leave.
they just start circling every time, smelling if you're there. And
And one good way to map that out and know that if that's what's happening to you is I get people all the time, and I've seen it 1,000 times myself, where I get that bear I'm hunting that comes 10 minutes after I leave, 2, 3, 4 nights in a row. That has taught me a couple things. A, do not leave that spot. That bear is there. He wants to come, but he knows you're there too, and he knows that little bit of element of danger just keeps him laying in the swamp till after dark. But the second you're gone, he makes one more circle, verifies danger's cleared, and there he is. That bear, I'm on 1 to 3 days from killing that bear almost every time. In my opinion, if I get that last second bear that hits right after I leave 2-3 times, he's probably going to get whacked because I ain't leaving that stand until he does, unless I just have to leave for some reason, which I typically don't. He had a giant head too. What he was like 20, I think he was 22 and 2, 22 and 1, 22 and something. I don't get into scores too much. I don't put nothing in the books. People tend to follow you too much then. You know, they want to run down every bait you've got, dissect what you're using, which what I'm using is no secret. I'd let my customers mix my bait pails if they wanted. In fact, if you want to, come do it. We're all using the same stuff. This bear, this is an example of terrible conservation. If you get a good video of that bear, how it's shaped, how ill proportioned, how it looks like a pear. The biggest reason, well, I know 100% why. There's a small refuge in this area. It's 400 acres this guy owns, and he calls himself the Bear Man. And what he does is he takes all these grocery store and gas station, A&W. By the way, this is a plug to never eat A&W if you can. He gets all these tree huggers basically donate all this money and all this food to him, and he feeds all these bears in his backyard. It's not like a bear sanctuary where there's a zoo and people are walking through all the time. It's just a guy out in the timber that's an anti-hunter, and he wants to feed all these bears thinking he's doing them a favor. That bear, which I know the history because I got it right from his mouth, that bear was born at his place and ate at his place its whole life. That bear was 9 or 10 years old, I believe. That bear is a perfect example of a bear that doesn't grow up in nature. It grows up a supplemented animal by a human. That bear is disgusting the way it's shaped, right? It's one of the ugliest bears you'll ever see. It looks like a big old sow.
I love it.
Me too. If I told you the whole story, you'd love it even more. So this bear, it was my first day ever hunting with my recurve. First time I've ever sat in a tree with it. And this is the bear that walks in. And I'm looking at the bear going, oh man, that don't look right.
You weren't even aware of them, huh?
No, I had no idea about this bear. And I can give you the brief rundown on where that bear came from and why, but I didn't know it at the time when the bear came in. So I shoot the bear. First recurve hunt ever. 603-pound bowl of fat is what I got. Amazing.
Yep.
The backstory to that bear is that bear lived on that preserve. It was about a mile and a half away. When I went in and started that bait up, I went in and gold rushed the shit out of it, which, instead of just saying it, Gold Rush is a commercially built concentrate by Northwoods Bear Product.
Yep.
So when I got that scent going at that bait, and a mile is nothing for a bear. They were probably sitting on the guy's porch smelling it as I was putting it out. But that aroma traveled literally the day before. It traveled out and brought this bear off that refuge and ended up shooting it. Now, we named that bear Cecil. And the reason we named it Cecil, it was the exact same time when the dentist had shot the lion, Cecil the lion. Well, it was kind of the same story. He was just out hunting. The lion came off the preserve. What did he do wrong? He didn't do anything wrong. The problem is the public and the media spun it to where he had done something just catastrophic that was wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm hunting private land. The bear, got whiff of my bait and my scent. It did its job exactly. He come and voila, now he gets a great place to live.
Right.
So, that's just a perfect example of a bear that went through really a shit life. These bears will live, 30 plus years in the right conditions with the right scenarios. But that bear, I'll guarantee you never would have made 20. Not a chance. As unhealthy as that bear is, that bear couldn't fight. That's a male. That bear don't stand a chance against a good big 4-year-old brute. He'll kick the shit out of him. It's just ill proportioned, but that's exactly what the bear looked like. So it's not like that's bad taxidermy. That's really what it was. Disgusting, in my opinion. This bear is a Minnesota bear. One of the first years I hunted up in Minnesota, 25 years ago. And not a real crazy story behind that one by any means. Just get out bear hunting and that happened. Now that was probably in that 200 to 225 pound range. Everybody thinks that if a bear isn't 500 pounds, it's small. That's
a big bear.
That's a biggest fallacy in bear hunting. People don't understand that. The average bear shot in Wisconsin is 125 pounds.
Yeah.
That's the average.
The average bear in Minnesota is 110.
110.
Yep.
And it's all because most people shoot the first one they see.
Yeah, not only that, but most people who shoot a 110-pound bear call it 150 pounds, and most people who shoot a 150-pound bear call it 300 pounds.
Yeah. That is the other. You think fishermen lie, bear hunters are worse.
Right.
And unknowingly, a lot of times. They don't know.
Yeah, they just give you a number.
We've shot, without even exaggerating, probably 150 to 200 bears that I've been part of in person. And I've seen it 50 times where a guy shoots a bear, he's ecstatic. He can't be any happier. His bear's laying there. He's, it ain't nearly as big as I thought it was, but I'm so happy. Well, then you get to the scale. And I've seen people go from ecstatic to disappointed and, quite frankly, pissed after they weigh it.
I've seen people say that the scale's off.
Yeah, and it's just not.
And if you're happy with it before you weigh it, you should be happy with it afterwards.
If it was me in my camps, I'll tell you right now, if it's up to me, we're not weighing the bears. Unless you shoot a giant and you just want to know how much does that thing weigh? Because you're not going to be disappointed in the giant, no matter what. But if it was up to me, we would not weigh bears in my camps. Unfortunately, there's a lot of places I go that it's by law, you have to. You could make a number up, but then you're cheating, you're not doing things correctly. So we do. And I've just seen 50 guys shoot a bear that they're happy with until it hits the scale, and then they're just disappointed as can be. And that's unfortunate. That's why.
And you look at this bear, I mean, look at the size of the pads. Can you get your hand up there? That thing's got a big pad.
Maybe.
And it's that's a tall bear. It's probably going to go, up to your
Yeah, it was a good size.
low size of your chest.
It wasn't small.
And that's what, 250, 260?
I can't recall the weight on that bear, so I don't even want to throw a number, but I think it was 250 or better.
But that is a really good bear. That'd be a really good bear. Wisconsin, Minnesota, even Canada.
Even for guys that have shot a couple of them, that's still a great bear. And I have a friend that
Do you know
shot
what the age
one.
was on it?
I don't recall on that. I really don't. Back then, I ain't even sure if they were giving you ages, to be honest.
Okay.
I had a friend a couple of years ago that shot the bear of his lifetime, and it was small. But he had dreamed of a color phase bear his whole life, and he said, hey, if I can get one color phase bear with my bow before I die, that's all I want. He got it. He got home, and everybody wants to hear the story. Oh, you got a bear, da, da, da. And the first question everybody asks, because they think it matters, how much did it weigh? The bear was 110 pounds, 125 pounds. It was not big, but it was his. He loved it. And when he would say that, he'd get to the story and everybody would be happy for him until he spit out the weight. And then everybody's, well, why'd you shoot a little one like that? And it just deflated the whole thing for him to the point where he's like, I don't even want to talk to anyone ever again after I shoot my next bear. I don't want to talk about it. Because they ruined the experience for him.
I don't know. People don't get it. Like a 110-pound girlfriend's good.
Yeah,
Why isn't a 110-pound bear good?
Right, even a 140 ain't that bad. But it was that same principle that they took all the glory from him by criticizing him for shooting that 125-pound bear or whatever it was. Right. When in the end, everybody that criticized him didn't know shit from fat meat.
Right, they don't have any knowledge.
They know nothing.
Right.
So he shouldn't have took that to heart. But on the other side, that's hurtful. That's hurtful. And these are all sportsmen doing it. They just don't bear hunt, so they don't know anything about it. And it's easy to run your lips and not use your brain, and that's what a lot of people do. He's one of my prizes. It's kind of something I dreamed of my whole life. And one day I just decided, you know what? We saved a little money. Let's put a down payment on that hunt. And then I saved a little more money and put more money down. And finally, after 2 years of having it booked, it came time. Yeah, this is, I mean, these are as long as my fingers by far. And the pads are big. They're hard to see at this angle, but
I gotta look up to see him.
oh, he's just,
I can touch his nose.
he is a big animal. What's crazy about these things is how broad they are. I think one of the best views of him is looking up his back. Gives you a sense of how long he is and how thick he is. I mean, we couldn't get 4 hands around his arm.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even halfway with 2 hands.
Yeah, I bet you couldn't even pick his head up when he's dead.
I remember dragging that hide because after we skinned him, we shot him in Alaska on the peninsula. And after we were skinning him, we had one of these, they call them broiler bags, and they're like a giant IBC tote, but they're mesh, and they use them for putting fish in, offloading fish off the fishing boats. Well, we brought one of them with just to try to keep the hide somewhat clean up in the tundra. After we skinned him, we did leave the skull in him. The skull and the hide, we got it in that broiler bag, and there was 4 of us dragging that thing. And we had to drag it about 200 yards to throw it off the sea shelf, or the seawall, to get down to the ocean floor where we could drive it out. It took 4 of us, probably 45 minutes to drag that hide, just the hide. Now, granted, we had a lot of fat on him still. We were trying to get out of there because the weather was brutal, but it's just, this is another one of them animals that really ain't that damn scared of you. There's 3 classifications of them up there, and I'll just give a quick rundown so people understand the difference. You got an inland grizzly. An inland grizzly is considered any grizzly bear that lives 50 miles away from the ocean. That's an inland grizzly. If it lives within 50 miles to the shore, it's a coastal. Then you've got a Kodiak. And Kodiak is just exclusive to Kodiak Island. It's the same damn bear. They eat the same stuff, same species, same genus, phylum and species, all the stuff's the same. The difference is where it's located. So essentially, the biggest of the big, when they live close to the ocean, that's when they're going to get the bigger ones. And the reason they're bigger is because they're eating a lot of whales and walruses and sea life.
And salmon.
Meat.
Yep.
Versus the bears inland are typically going to eat more berries, twigs, you know, the vegetarian diet. So they just don't get as big. It's just like a Somalian. Go find a 300-pound Somalian.
So how big is this one?
10-4, and there was some deliberation there. Some of the guys there, one of them said 10-6, the other one said 10-4. When I put the tape on him, it was a legit 10-4, so I say he's 10-4.
And I pay attention to a lot of the brown bear shows. I rarely see one over 9.5. 9.5 is a huge one.
Well, and that's the truth, and it going right back to the black bear scenario we just talked about. Everybody says, I'm going to go there and get a 10-footer. That's like going on a deer hunt and saying, I'm going to shoot a 200-inch deer. Well, it's different if you've got a 200-inch deer that you know where he's bedding, what he's doing, and you're on him. If you've got here again, these bears in the spring on the tundra, we're hunting during the rut. These things will cover 50, 60 miles every day. So the bear that you've seen on that point a week ago, he's hundreds of miles away most likely. So keeping tabs on a big bear there is not easy to do during the rut. When it comes down to it, I've done it one time. I hunted this bear once, and I got the biggest one I could go back 50 times and never see another 10-footer. That's reality. Maybe I'd get one more. The truth in the matter on this bear is a bow hunt, which is all I ever want to do. We ended up having to shoot that bear with a gun at 7 yards. We didn't have a choice. It was us or him. So,
But you first shot it with a bow, right?
no, I never got to. He spotted me. And when he got to me, there was a berm. I don't want to get the story too long, but there was a 3-foot berm, and I'm just hiding behind that berm as he's walking it along the edge. And I was trying to get him to walk past me, draw, and shoot him. The problem is he caught a flicker of the top of my hat because I seen my guide who initially told me this bear was not that big. He said he's probably a 9 to 9.5 foot bear. What we didn't realize is while we were judging him, he was in the damn marsh sinking up to basically to his elbows. So when he come out of that marsh, and I told the guy, I said, man, if that's what a 9 or 9.5 foot bear looks like, I'm all for him. Let's harvest that bear. Well, then when he come up out of that marsh and he was walking on solid ground, I was already hidden in my spot because I'd seen his trail where he had crossed, figuring he'd come back through there. That bear, me and my guide couldn't communicate. He's 10, 15 yards away from me, and I'm hiding, and all I can see is his eyes. I'm looking back at him, and I watched his eyes get really big, and I thought, oh man, something's happening here. I need to know what's going on right now. So I poked my head over that berm to see what was going on, and the bear is only 15 yards from me at most. Still coming, so he sees my hat. Well, I ducked back down initially, and no sooner did I do that, he comes over that berm 7 yards away, and then it had to turn into a gun hunt. You don't know, maybe he'd have run, but when he's at 7 yards standing on all fours, and that's why my guide's eyes got so nuts, is because that bear stood up on dry land and tried looking over that berm. Then he's seen how big he really was, but he had told me not to shoot the bear because it was only a 9 or 9.5 foot, which is a very good bear, by the way. That's not a small one. A small one is in the 8 foot range. So anyway, we ended up pumping a couple rounds into his shoulders, and he died 7 yards. He didn't go anywhere. Crazy hunt. Love it. Yeah, I wish it was a bow kill. I do. It's one of my only animals in here that isn't, but we did what we had to do, and I wasn't going to be too damn picky about it. So this bear here is one that probably means more to me than I would say all of them. I shouldn't say all of them. He means more to me than any other black bear. And the way this saga started, probably close to 20 years ago, we had a bear that had a wolf snare around his neck. And what happened was the guy was wolf trapping. The bear got into the snare, broke the snare off, but he wore it on his neck. And it had to stop. They didn't have restrictive restraints like we do in Wisconsin. This was in Canada. So that bear had that snare around his neck, and he got to be pretty well known in the area because he was one of the bears that was going to the Donut Man's place all the time. So he knew he had this snare on him. It started getting out all over the place about this snare and yada yada. Well, fast forward, I don't know, probably 7, 8 years. He wasn't really a bear that we identified as a big bear back then. He was just a bear with a snare on him, which made him identifiable and cool, but you had to see him in person or get a picture of him to know it was him. I had a fella, hell of a good archery guy actually, out of Colorado. He come with me, and we had 2 bears on camera in this particular bait where the scenario happened that were both giants. They were both big. And I told him, I said, the other one we called Frank the Tank. We killed Frank this past spring, actually. One of the biggest black bears you'll ever see. Anyway, I told him, I said, don't shoot any of these bears until that real big one comes in with a white W on his chest. Don't shoot anything else. He comes back after the first night. What'd you see? He's like, oh, I've seen a bunch. One really big one too, but it wasn't the one I was looking for, so I didn't shoot it. And he starts replaying the footage on the video camera for me. And he gets to, turns out to be him. He gets to him, and I'm going, oh my God, that was Zip Tie. We haven't seen Zip Tie in years. We thought he was dead. You listen too damn good. I know I told you not to shoot any bear except for that one with the white W, but this bear, A, is just as big. B, the story behind him is bigger than the other bear. So you screwed up, but good job listening too well, which you never have to say to anyone hardly ever. So he's like, well, if I see him again, do I shoot him? I said, God, yes, you shoot him. If you don't, I'm kicking you out of that spot, and I'm going to go shoot him. Well, needless to say, about 3 days later, he comes back to the truck after dark, and he said, I shot that damn bear. I shot the one with the snare on him. I said, you're kidding. He's got it all on film. He made some rookie mistakes. He took a shot. He had the bear perfectly broadside 15 yards. He should have killed the bear. Instead, he wanted the footage, so he messed with his video camera, and then the bear went and laid down at the bait. He took the shot with the bear laying down, which is a big, big no-no on a bear. This is a quick little sample of why. If these are the bear's lungs, sitting like this when he's standing, when they lay, they do this. They flatten out. So they're damn near impossible to hit. And if you get one, you won't get two. About no chance of it. So anyway, he took the shot at the bear laying down, ended up coming through, basically right through here and greasing him real low. I watched the video several times. It looked like a gut shot to me for sure. We were gonna get torrential rain late that night, like 4 or 5 in the morning. So I told all the boys, I said, it's a gut shot bear. I don't want to push it, but we don't have a lot of choice here either. We got to go see what we can do with it. I said, either go to bed now or you're gonna have to stay up all night. We're leaving at 3 o'clock. Well, at 3 o'clock we go out, we track, we got blood, but all we're finding is we're finding on these wore down bear trails in the swamps, I could see where he was skiffing. He was dragging a foot a little bit. But then on the inside of the undercut, I would find blood in the moss every once in a while, which told me that there was blood leaking off his left paw. After we watched the footage again, we stopped and looked at it. Well, the exit, when that arrow exited the other side, shot through his foot. That's where he was leaving that dab of blood, and that's why he was scraping when he was walking. That was shot number 1 into zip tie 15 years ago. Fast forward another 6, 7 years. I put a buddy on a bait that he's been known to be to before. And now we're really looking for him from here on out, hoping. But we did get videos of him 24 hours after the first guy shot him. 24 hours later, 10 miles away, we had videos of him still going after sows. He was fine. This was a superficial belly cut and a superficial paw wound. Wasn't enough to even put a hitch in his giddy up. I loved seeing that because it told me he was going to be fine. Fast forward a couple of years, we got another friend with us hunting up there, and these bears, just because they were on that bait last year, don't really give you a better chance of seeing them there again. They'll be somewhere, you just never know where. 10, 15 mile circle is where he'll be. Needless to say, another friend shoots at this bear, and when big bears come in, people tend to lose their mind a lot. He shoots this bear, hits it in the ass end, puts a bad shot in him. Gimps him up, we never find him. Fast forward another 5, 6, 7 years after that, it would have been the year I killed him. 3 years ago, I believe it was. 3 or 4. I get into this bait that I typically throw some cameras on and wait and see what's hitting that bait before I go just hunt the hell out of it. The first night, I get videos of zip tie in there. And I instantly knew it was him, and I just said, I'm here, I'm staying in the spot for the rest of the week, and I'm not shooting any other bear. Unless a 1,000-pound black bear comes walking in, I ain't shooting nothing else. So this old boy, I had to sit there 8 days. I was actually done on day 7, and I said, no, I'm staying an extra day or 2. I'm gonna take my chances on him coming. Day 8, here come the sow, and I'd been watching this sow every day. She'd come in multiple times. Here come this same black sow with a ripped up ear and all the other stuff that identified her. She comes in, and she keeps looking back. And I've learned in the spring when I see a sow come in and she keeps looking back, there's a boar coming every time. So basically, after about 5 minutes, I can see him coming. I can see him coming through the swamp. I don't know it's him yet. I just know it's a boar coming for that sow. He gets about 75 yards, and I see the white ring. It's hard to see probably in the video because of the turn, but on the back side, you can really see where the cable dug into his neck. I don't think you can see it too well here because of the turn, but you can definitely see it on this side. Anyway, he comes in, and the second I knew it was him, I'm in great shape when I'm shooting a bear usually. He gets to like 25 yards, and I'm losing my marbles just a little bit. And I had to stop myself and say, you don't calm down, you're gonna screw this up, and you cannot screw this up. 2 of your friends have wounded this bear through the years. So he come in and didn't really give me a good broadside shot for a few minutes, and that was pretty nerving because he's 15 yards away, but I can't get an arrow in him. Finally, he turns, and he turned and gave me the broadside shot. Yes. Zip tie. What do you think, Ken?
Nice, he's not as heavy, I think. He's too fucking heavy.
He's right where I thought he was. That's a good sign. He's still pretty big. No. Ken?
The legend of zip tie is over. Oh my god. What a tank. Like, I don't even. Oh.
He's not stretched out, so he looks short, but he's big anyway. You know, he was dead within probably 5 seconds, maybe less. So we got to bring Zip Tie home. I'm super ecstatic. He's got so much history and so much story behind him. My outfitter up there is a gruff old man. When I say tough, he's tougher than a wood tick on a dog. He cried a little bit when we killed this bear. It meant that much to him because this bear was just known in the whole district. Everybody knew about him because he got big, and then he had the snare on him and all that stuff. And I know that was probably the most special bear. He's been a part of 300-400 kills probably, and this is the most special to him from what I can tell anyway. But yeah, I think I've got 3 more bears being done right now. Well, 4 now.
Yeah.
There's a special one being. Number 50 was pretty special.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the bears we have out in the shop right now, and plenty more coming. Hopefully in 2 months I can add another one to my list. But it's hunting. We'll find out.
His bar is new.
Yeah, it's
You got zebra skins in it and giraffe skins and
a lot of animals going to be mounted all the way around, inside and out, up top. They're all kind of in process right now. We're just getting going on them. Thankfully, the tannery process is done. The getting them into the United States part is done. Now they're just being mounted. I went to the SCI convention in Nashville back in the end of January. And my intention there was to book that hunt. It's something I've wanted to do forever. I've been holding off on it, waiting, hoping they'd change the import laws, and I knew that was a double-edged sword too, because the second they changed it, the hunt prices would double. I finally just came to realization that if I keep waiting and waiting and waiting, I may never get there. And that was not an option for me. It was really the last animal on my list. I booked that hunt, or intended to book that hunt, 26, 27. I wanted time, I wanted to be able to prepare, save the money, all that stuff. And it got to a point where, just coincidentally enough, there was a cancellation the night before. And he offered me the trip. He said it was the most brutal one they have, but it was the best one they have. And if you're really, really flexible, in 30 days you could be out on the ice chasing a polar bear if you want. And it took me 20, 30 minutes probably of deliberating. I already had my mind made up, but I was trying to talk myself out of it and I couldn't. So I booked the hunt. That was great. Everything went great, but within 2 days after booking, I got really nervous. I got actually more nervous than I've ever been on a hunt. And it wasn't because of the hunt, it was more because of the lack of time to prepare mentally, logistics, make sure I got all the right gear, all that stuff. It was just really, really short time, and I realized after I booked it how I kind of put myself in a corner. But the second I got home, that's all I started doing, is preparing for that polar bear. My archery stuff is all good. I mean, we shoot all the time, so it ain't like I had to go get a bow or
what are the
tune
temperatures?
I think one of the warmest days was the day I actually shot my bear, and that was somewhere in that 30, 32 below zero. I've been in some harsh places, and I'm going to tell you, there's nothing similar to it. I've hunted in 120 degree heat. I've hunted in 10 below stuff in Alberta, Saskatchewan, just all over the world, even Alaska. Alaska's miserable, can be miserable, usually is. This place, I would say somewhere between 15 and 20 times more miserable. But it was all part of the experience, and When I knew I was going, then, you know, I knew I had to get real, and I had to get real fast. It came up that quick. Literally, it seemed like 2 days ago I booked the trip and tomorrow I'm leaving. It came that fast, which 30 days typically does. We get to the point where it's launch day, and that's one of the miserable parts of hunting the high Arctic. It's 2 days of traveling, and that's if everything goes perfect. It's going to take you over 2 days to get there. I took off, you know, just kind of with a lackadaisical attitude. If we get delayed or miss a flight or something gets canceled, it is what it is. It's part of the Arctic. When you get to the high Arctic, things typically don't go like they're supposed to. So we hit all these deadlines and all these flights. We get there in time. My bags show up, my bow is there. Everything is just like you hoped it would be. And then I sat for 4 days. Sitting there for 4 days wanting to get out hunting. But the weather, we were just weathered in. There's nothing we could do. Kind of got to a point where they know that this is how it goes, so they prepared me mentally for that. And on day 4, I'm going, come on, guys, I don't know how much more I can take of this. Well, it looks good tomorrow, so hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to get out. Well, day 5, we did. We finally got out. We get only 2 hours into traveling, and the traveling is we pull a 6-foot by 10-foot shack behind us that we sleep in, and then there's a dog sled with a team of 10 sled dogs. And basically you travel at the speed the dogs can run. We only get out 2 hours from, the name of the town was Resolute, none of it. And we only get 2 hours in, and they stopped and said, well, we'll make camp here. And I thought, oh, geez, we only hunted 2 hours? Well, I didn't realize that the hunt isn't just when you're traveling, it's when you're sitting. Because when you're sitting, the bears will smell you and they'll come to you because they're just not scared. And anything they can eat, they come after. Well, it got down to a point where I started learning that after seeing 6 or 7 bears the first day from that spot 2 hours out. I thought, okay, I need to just quit and let these guys do their job and trust them because they are the best of the best. And I knew that because I'd researched them for 15, 20 years. I knew I was hunting with the right people. Gets to a point where there was one big bear that we spotted that first day that I kind of got, here again, a little bit overzealous wanting to go after because I knew he was big enough. When they told me we weren't going to go after that bear, I kind of had to ask why. And basically we were camped between 2 islands. They were crossing from one island to the next, and then on the other side of that other island, probably 4 miles away, 5 miles, was what they call the flowage. And the flowage is where the ice isn't frozen solid, it's still drifting icebergs and it's moving, it's water. And that is easy for the bears because they can get seals. Very easily they can catch seals and that stuff. So that's learning that that bear would make it to the open water before we'd ever catch up to him. That was the reason we didn't go after that bear the first day. So I understood. Spirits stayed high. I wasn't going to let it get me down no matter what. We get to day 2. We can't move. We're weathered in. And then I got into what I thought was going to be a really cool scenario. They said, tomorrow, if the weather is conducive, we're going to move and we're going to go try to kill a seal. And, you know, I assumed that the seal was bear bait, you know, get them a little blood on the ice. They're certainly going to smell that for a long, long ways. And that was one of our purposes. The other was to feed the dogs. Seal meat is so rich in protein. They say if you eat a piece of raw seal meat and you're cold, you'll instantly warm right up. That's what the Inuits tell me anyway. We never got a seal. They said usually seal hunting takes us 5 to 15 minutes to get one. All right, well, I should be able to see my first seal get shot then. Well, it came down to where we hunted first for 2.5 hours. Never seen one. They went back out, and then the 2 Inuit guides went back out trying to find a seal to shoot, and they hunted another 2 hours, and they couldn't find one either. So we never ended up getting a seal for bait, or for the dogs, mind you. For probably another 4 or 5 days out there, and the conditions are just, they're insane. You're talking 30 to 50 below zero. The wind, there's no shelter, no protection, and everything is just a different level of cold. And it's a very dry cold. And it gets to a point where the little shack that we sleep in, basically you go outside and glass until you couldn't take it no more. You go back in there and warm up. Well, the Inuits do everything to the extreme. It's the most extreme cold, but when they get warmed up, they don't just get warmed up. They crank everything up and you make that little shack 100 plus degrees. It might have been 125 degrees most of the time. So to me, that was actually a hell of a lot more miserable in that shack being hot than it was being outside freezing. And I've got frostbite on both my feet. My lips got frostbite. I mean, everything there is, it's going to take you down at some fashion or another. We get to, I think day 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. And I just, with a good attitude, said, guys, we're going to get the bear tomorrow, just so you know. Wake up the next morning, the sun is out. First time we'd seen the sun. And the guys were kind of not happy about it. And I said, well, explain to me why you're not happy about the sun being out for the first time I've seen. And they say, hey, you don't have the cloud cover, so that thermal blanket makes it colder than if you've got clouds. The second thing is the sun glaring off the snow and ice makes it very difficult to spot these bears, which I never would have known. But after seeing sunny day versus cloudy days you can see them for 20, 25 miles. On a sunny day, you're lucky to see a mile or two, just because of the glare. So we continue hunting that day, and we get to a point where on the snowmobile and the sled, we would catch the dogs in time. So when we would catch the dogs, we would just stop, get out, get up on the shack and start glassing for as far as you could possibly see, or climb an ice heave or something, and let the dogs get out way, a mile or two ahead of us. Then we would proceed until we caught them again. Well, we stopped at this one point. There was a giant glacier heave that he was trying to get to because he knew that with the open water where the glacier had heaved up, there would be seals in there and the bears would be hunting them seals. Well, he was right. We get probably within 2 miles of that ice heave and we stopped to glass. Well, we glassed up another bear. And this bear, we didn't take but a half a second to know that this thing was big and way bigger than anything we had seen. We start, getting on the dog sled and headed toward him. When you finish the hunt, when you go after a bear, I think it's actually some kind of an Inuit law that you have to be in the dog sled. So that was the first time he put me on the dog sled. I'm glad he did, because the experience in itself was pretty neat to be out on a legit dog sled out on the Arctic Ocean. We kind of get around this ice heave to the left side, the south end of it. That bear is perched up on them ice heaves 25, 30 feet high, and he's overlooking everything. 40, 50 miles of stuff he can see. So nothing was going to sneak up on him. The Inuit says to me, he stops the dog sled and he says, all right, grab your bow, go see if you can get close enough to shoot him. And I looked at him, I was like, you coming with? He said, no, I'm just going to stay here and videotape. What about a backup gun? Don't worry about it, I ain't going to help you anyway. Okay, I guess you want me to go climb through that ice heave and try to get close enough to a polar bear in the wide open, huh? Yep. Okay, here we go. Got all set up and started climbing, and I started climbing these ice heaves, and I learned really, really quick, you don't get to watch the bear while you're climbing, because if you're not watching every place you step, you're going to fall in the voids. You're going to either way. And then you're going to slide off these things, and that ended up happening to me. I got probably, I'm going to guess 60, 70 yards from the bear and slid off one of the glacier ice heaves and fell down, and I actually fractured my leg. I didn't know I did it at the time. But I just got back up, looked at my bow, made sure everything was copacetic on that, and it seemed to be. I started climbing back where I just fell from, and when I got back up there, I stopped, looked at the bear, and said, he's 50, 60, whatever, too far without my rangefinder. My rangefinder wouldn't work. I've got a damn good rangefinder. It was too cold. Will not work out there. So if anybody ever goes and hunts the high Arctic, take a small rangefinder and keep it on your body, close to your body. Mine were built into my binoculars. They would not work out there. Just too cold. So I get to 50, 60 yards thinking the bear is faced right directly toward me. I can't take that shot. And it's too far still anyway. So I basically circled around to his left to try to get somewhat broadside to him. And I stopped climbing to check him again. I looked and I went, oh shit, he's only like, I'm gonna guess 28 yards right now. And he's just sitting there, quartered to me. I drew back on him because I knew he was in a good spot to shoot him, but I wanted to see him a little more broadside so I could get both lungs. At least then if he come after me, he only had 5 seconds or 10 seconds to chew on me. Needless to say, he wouldn't turn. I held my draw for what I'd like to think is 2 minutes, maybe a minute. You know, it seems like 2 hours, but I tucked that arrow in as tight as I could to his front shoulder. It exited back in the rear quarter on the opposite side. The bear went, I don't think it's 15 yards, 10 yards maybe. I count in the video, actually, we got the whole thing on film thanks to my Inuit guide standing back 150 yards and videotaping with his phone. Probably, I think it's 15 seconds from the time the arrow hit him to the time he was stone dead. And in the video, you can actually see him slide off the edge of the cliff, and he's dead right when he starts sliding down the hill. So everything turned out pretty amazing. I mean, I came home with a dream of a lifetime, more so than anything I can even describe. I can't even tell you how big that was for me. It was number 50. It was my 50th bear, and I capped it with a polar bear. I wanted to. I always thought, it's out of your wheelhouse, too expensive, you know, this, that, and the other thing. At some point, you just gotta want it. And if you want it bad enough, you can make it happen. I don't care who you are, how much money you have, what you do for work. You just have to want it, and you have to make other sacrifices to make it happen.
This is where the bear was standing when I shot him. I believe I was standing, God knows where, somewhere out in that shit. Anyway, check this out. There's our camp that we dropped. This is what you call rough ice. And I've been in the Arctic for 8 days now, I believe it is. And this is the first and only time I've seen the sun. And it's just about to go down. What the hell more do you want in life? Other than another 60 degrees warmer. These people are amazingly tough. If I'm a 2 on a scale of 100 in being tough, these people are 99. I don't even know how they do it, but they do. And they don't complain. They're happier than happy. They love every minute of what they're doing. It may not seem like they're trying all the time, but they are. They just do certain things for certain reasons. There's the arrow. He actually threw it after he started running. And he didn't go anywhere. This is where I shot him. You can see he was sitting right here. He got up to walk right before I shot him. And he's actually, you can see the blood trail. And he's actually dead right below me here. I can't quite get video of him from where I'm standing, but he's only 15 yards away probably. Yeah, pretty cool. I'm gonna go see if I can't get that arrow, and my battery's about dead because nothing lasts very long up here as cold as it is. Pretty neat stuff. So hopefully I can get home in the next 10 days or so. Cool stuff, huh? So this is how it turned out. The bear got in these ice heaves and made it pretty well impossible to get to him. And I passed on a shot probably an hour ago because I wasn't sure of the distance, and it's just too damn cold for the rangefinder. And I didn't like it, so I didn't take it. It's a shot I could have made very easily, but when you don't know the distance, it's not something you want to screw with. There's one of the coolest things that you're probably ever gonna never see again. That arrow sticking out of that glacier. That's pretty cool stuff. But this was my lifelong dream. Here it is. It worked out. Made a perfect shot on the first one. He was quartered more than I liked, but I couldn't do nothing about it. So I tucked one in behind his front shoulder, and there's the hole. And the exit was back on the side, come out in the rear end, but that was just the angle I had and nothing I could really do about it. This thing's a giant. Can't even believe it. It's from my dad. This one's from my dad and my wife. She's the reason I can do this stuff, is because she lets me, and she's a great woman, and I hope to let her do anything it is that she wishes to do. Here's some stuff in the, believe it or not, open water. That's why he comes up here, is basically, you know, digging out seals. The seals will come up and breathe out of these open holes. The ice is 8 feet thick everywhere else, but you'll find spots like this where they keep it open so they can breathe. The bear didn't go anywhere. Actually, I shot him. Right there is the arrow, and he took about 5 steps and fell off this ice heave right here and died right here. So he didn't go anywhere. He didn't suffer. I did take a second shot at him as he was walking away and grazed the top of his back, but when you're guessing yardage and 40 below zero and 40 yards and a walking bear, I guess just touching him was good enough. I don't know. I don't even know what else to tell anybody here. This is kind of for the people at home to see. I've got a hell of a video in my head already. This is just insane. I can't even pick this paw up. Let's see if I can do anything with the other one. Nah, it's just too big. I can't even pick it up. But you get the principle here. It's just a mammoth of an animal. And I'm excited as hell to be here. All right, checking out.
While we're sitting over that bear, you know, just kind of reliving the moment and putting my hands on him for the first time, it is so surreal. And I'm a week out from shooting him now. I shot him a little over a week ago now. And I still find myself waking up in the middle of the night, replaying the scenario, remembering little bits and pieces that I didn't remember at the time because I was so focused on doing everything right. I shouldn't say never, but I don't know that I've ever had an animal that I've ever harvested where I was as blacked out and zoned out as I was with that polar bear. And it was because it meant that much to me, I think, for one. For two, I knew I was in a very dangerous situation with no backup. That makes you focus on things. And when you focus, you do your job. If all you're thinking is, holy shit, that's a 1,500 pound bear 30 yards from me that's hissing at me and staring at me and growling, and if that's all that's in your mind, you won't execute a perfect shot. You can't, because your mind isn't where it needs to be. And I had some guys years and years ago that I did some training with, and they, if you follow their program, I don't care if your buddy next to you is getting chewed on by a grizzly bear, if you keep in the right frame of mind, you're not panicked. You're just not. Now, I learned right after I shot the bear, then I got very panicked. And not panicked in a bad way, in like, holy shit, this just actually happened.
An adrenaline drop.
And he's dead and I'm not. Like I said, I fractured my leg and I climbed in them ice heaves and butchered the bear and did all that stuff with a fractured leg. And later in the day, it really started to get to me. But it's amazing what adrenaline will do to you. And it can be your best friend and your worst enemy. Because if you're just running on adrenaline, you're not using your brain. If you're not using any adrenaline in the situation I was in, things, you know, it could have been ended right there where I let that get to me and my leg is broke and I need to, you know, get the helicopter out of here like some people would probably do. That was an alternative too. It just wasn't in my speak per se. After putting my hands on him, it's just baffling. I mean, it's baffling how big he is, for one. For two, just the fact he's a polar bear. He could have been an average polar bear and I'd have been just as happy. But turning down, I think we've seen 20 plus bears in that during our time out there. Anybody that wants to portray that polar bears are going extinct is drinking the wrong Kool-Aid, because they're not extinct. They're worth more money today. These polar bears were getting poached 10 and 20 years ago. They were poaching the living crap out of them because the gallbladders were valuable. Now, the hunting market has made these polar bears more valuable than the gallbladders, so now nobody's shooting them. Unless they're hunting specifically for a polar bear, they're not getting poached like they were. They were decimating a polar bear population, but these people that tell you that's from climate change and global warming, not a chance in hell is that true. And I promise you that. I think most of us know that that kind of propaganda is typically spewed out because they want you to think the way that they think. And the people that don't know or don't have a vested interest in an animal like that, they just go with what they've seen. That's why most of these commercials you see on TV are the worst possible scenario. You know, look at this Jewish lady who's starving. She had one apple 2 weeks ago. You know, they just made that commercial as big as they can for pulling on your heartstrings. I'm not going to say that lady isn't destitute. I'm going to tell you she probably ain't as bad a shape as they're trying to portray. And it's the same story in the polar bears. They just try to make it worse than it is. I'm shooting a RIP TKO, 450 grain total weight. Shooting like a 17% FOC on it, 100 grain head. We use an Ethics outsert collar to bond the end of that arrow, so all that penetration and kinetic energy is going into that broadhead instead of splintering arrows, mushrooming arrows, things like that. I didn't change that arrow. I shoot everything with that arrow. I think I would have to get into maybe like Cape Buffalo and bigger before I would switch that setup. And I might not even switch it with that. I would switch the head. Actually, this head right here, that actually went through a giraffe, which is every bit as big, if not bigger, than a Cape Buffalo chest. And that went in one side, out the other, blew right through him at 47 yards. That's with that arrow build. 72-pound bow, Matthews Lift X, HHA sight. Actually running the Matthews Q80 rest on that one, which I hadn't done for a bunch of years, but they've kind of proven to me that it works very well and is very fail-safe. If it worked up there, it'll work anywhere. That was my biggest fear. I brought a whisker biscuit with me just in case that malfunctioned, because to me that was my weak spot. My equipment was my rest. I mean, even in that cold weather, it stayed up fine, it stayed down, it went down, you know, everything worked just like it was supposed to. The setup, it's an archery set, it's a whitetail setup. I mean, it's really, I've shot a lot of mule deer with it, whitetail deer, a lot of bears, the polar bear now, the red stag, a lot of these animals. I've shot elk with them. What I did switch to though for that hunt, and I'll use this like elk and things like that, I'll use a fixed blade more often than not, just because of the size of the animal. And getting 2 holes in them is typically the difference between good blood trails and not so good. So I ended up shooting the Muzzy TI. It's a new titanium, and the reason that I shoot that head now when I need a fixed blade is in the past, Matthews bows typically would naturally shoot a left helical out of the bow because of the string twist. All the broadheads had a right helical. So it wants to come out left, the broadhead wants to go right, so essentially the first 20 feet, it's fighting each other for rotation or spiral. Now they've made this broadhead where you can switch the blades to a left helical or a right helical. That's what made me kind of go back to them for a fixed blade. You know, I did learn something about clothing up there. I've got really good clothing, really good gear, but the one piece that you almost couldn't do without was called Canada Goose is the brand. The jacket was a mega parka. And when I say mega, I guarantee that jacket weighed 20 pounds. But you know what? You couldn't get cold in it either because it was just that warm. Real fur hood on them. Go down to your knees for the most part. They're great when you're sitting still. When you're trying to walk, you can't shoot in it. I actually took the jacket off before I even went after the bear. And there again, you speak of the adrenaline, Dan. It's I'm in fingerless gloves because I shoot a thumb release. I'm in fingerless gloves. I've got a pair of bibs on, and a fairly, what we would call a heavier jacket here, but not even close to dress for the weather there. And from the time I left that dog sled to go after that bear to the time that we had him butchered and packed back to the cabin or the shack was probably 2.5 hours, maybe 3. I never put any more clothes on. The adrenaline was just running so high. I'm out there in 30 below zero, dressed like it's 55, and it didn't matter. I didn't get cold. My hands didn't get cold. My ears, nothing. That adrenaline is just, it's so powerful. In fact, I've been thinking of a way to try to bottle the stuff, and it's so powerful. Everybody's heard the stories of a guy lifting a car off his wife. That's adrenaline. Give that guy and 4 of his buddies the average chance they couldn't lift that car. But that adrenaline goes a long ways. So now the bear is, he's in the phase where he's going to get shipped to a taxidermist up in Canada, in Toronto. I'm going to have a rug made out of him just because I can't get him home because it's illegal to import any part of a polar bear into the United States right now. I'm going to do a rug on him, and then we took some measurements off of him, and I got Kanadi Taxidermy doing a replica for me. So I'll get a replica of him. The replicas are amazing. Wish it was the real thing, but I can't bring him home. So our plan is I'll have that rug at my place in Canada. I go there once, twice every year. And if the law never changes, I get to see him once or twice a year. If they do change, I drive 7 hours and throw him in the truck and bring him home. When I got home, I was beat up. Man, I hadn't slept. I was sick. Been sick for 2 weeks, and the leg thing and frostbite on both my feet, and it's just bad hip. Everything just kind of caught up to me. I didn't even move for 2 or 3 days after I got home. I just had to lay there and try to recover. I did go into the doctor right away to try to get some medication for this sickness, which helped immensely right away. So yeah, that's kind of the long and short of the polar bear story. I mean, there's a lot of other events and pictures and little memories that go along with it that you can never portray to people. You can show them the video, you can tell them about it. Being there is just so different. It's amazing. The trip of my lifetime. I'll never do anything that I find more prestigious or more wanted by me than the polar bear. There's just nothing out there. I wish there was, and if you can think of something, Dan, suggest it, because I'll go after it next.
I don't know. I'm not. I'm shy on camera.
Okay, you just say it. You don't even have to look at me. You say it. Don't even look at me.
Okay. Canada, the States were having a war back in the day, and there was a hand bomb. United States threw the grenade overboard. Oh.
Yeah.
And the U.S. who got to take that, pin off. So Canada took that grenade, took the pin off, and threw it back over the border. I don't know if that's funny or not, but I thought it was funny at that time.
Well, we can be that stupid once in a while.
I'm not. Well, a friend told me that.
We own Trophy Adventures. We're a bear bait supply company. We'll supply outfitters. We'll supply the individuals. Ship truckloads all over the country and Canada. We do quite a bit of that. What separates us the most from other bear bait dealers, in my opinion, is we like to help. Seeing my customers successful to me is more important to me than making any money on this stuff. We try to steer people in a direction to buy proper bait instead of just buying something. Great example, there was a lady called yesterday, and she'd never bear hunted. She's a first timer. She gets on YouTube, of course, like a lot of people, and starts getting recommendations and tips, and where them recommendations are from, who knows? Are they from Alberta? Are they from Maine? Are they from local? You don't know, and every place is a little bit different. That's the thing. One of the questions I'll typically ask a person that comes in and wants to talk about the logistics of what to have, why to feed certain things, what time to feed certain things during the season. First question I'll ask is, where are you hunting? And some of them take offense to that, like I want their coordinates to their bait site. No, I just want a region. What area are you in? Are you hunting cropland? Are you hunting more swampy stuff? Are you hunting tangled up jack pine forest? What are you in? That matters, because the availability to what food that bear is going to be consuming is going to be dictated by where he lives. We don't grow many oranges here, and it's because it's just not our climate. But just the same, you know, we get to Georgia or Florida or whatever, they're going to have availability to citrus trees that we can't. So primarily our goal is to create a roadmap or a plan for a customer and help them, more than just, hey, get your stuff, load it in your truck, pay me, and boogie. We go a little bit further out of the way to help people really succeed in this game. And I think that's really, it's been the success of my business for sure, because when you've got 50 bears under your belt, which is now what it is, you know, people tend to, you get a little bit of clout that you didn't have before, versus a teenage kid starts selling bait and he's never bear hunted. Pretty tough to get good advice from that guy. Mm-hmm. So we strive to, you know, coordinate as much as we can and help people. And it does take more time, no question. There's an aspect of it where I make my job twice as hard, but it's 4 times more fulfilling. That to me is more valuable than just shipping stuff out the door.
So what are the common mistakes people make?
Well, like as an example, the lady yesterday, and no offense to her whatsoever, she's learning and she's doing it right by asking. But one of her comments was, well, I know I want some trail mix and I want a barrel of pure nuts and everything to get started right away in the spring. And I let her talk, and then I went back and kind of corrected her on that. And I said, well, is there a reason you want to do that? Because I don't want to assume I just know more than the customer. Right. Maybe some of the customers got things to teach me, and that happens every year, and I love it. I just kind of went back to her and just said, is there a reason you want to start with them products? And she, well, you know, because I read and was told that nuts are nutritious, and there's truth in that. The problem is nutritious means about nothing to a bear, especially this time of year. Their goal is calories when they come out of the den. They're going to come out, and they are right now. This is actually, they're out, a lot of them are. And what they're doing is if you look at the landscape right now, there's no grasses out there for them. There's really nothing. The grasses is what makes them shit the plug, is kind of how it's termed. And what that is they actually have a plug in their digestive system while they're denning, and that keeps them from defecating in the den. Well, when they come out of the den, their metabolism is slow, their brain isn't working quite right. And what happens is they amble around until they kind of wake up, I guess you'd say. And then once they've shit that plug, then they'll really start consuming food. But in the first week or so out of the den, they can't really do that because they can't find grasses. And the grasses are what make them get rid of that plug. So long and short of it is, she was trying to feed nutritional value in the beginning because I think either A, she got bad advice, or B, she misinterpreted what she heard or read. And when it came down to it, I explained to her, I said that nutritional value is going to become very important late in the year when they get to it's a biological clock in their system that literally within the same week every single year, it goes off and says, hey, no more eating stuff that tastes good, fill my belly. It's just simply about nutrition now, because we have to put that fat layer on. If we don't, we're going to die. So the nutritious end is more important to me late in the year. I do feed it throughout the summer, but I feed it in a smaller, I run an 80-20 ration. I like to feed 80% filler, 20% nutritional all summer long. And then when I get to August 10th to the 15th, somewhere in there, I start really flipping that. And I start getting into what I would say 80% nutritional, 20% filler. Mm-hmm. And the filler still is important because they do want to get full. If I put an 8-ounce lobster tail on your plate and said that's all you get, you're going to eat that son of a bitch like you're starving to death. But you're not going to be full, and you're going to wish you had 10 more of them, or some mashed potatoes, something else to go with it. So we'll constantly keep that filler bait in our mix. I would say they start using less and less of it closer you get to denning. But when it comes down to it, cookies are always a good early season choice. They're not as expensive. They're not that durable in the weather, but if you've got a good bait site, your bait shouldn't be there more than 24 hours anyway. When it comes down to it, we'll blend a lot of the cookies, some of the candies and things like that. You can over sugar them just the same. I mean, I think there's a point where guys go in and they're just feeding candies and things that are just super high in corn syrup and sugar. Mm-hmm. I think,
yeah, and think about what it's like when you eat too much sugar.
Correct. You feel like shit. You know, it's really what it boils down to. And a lot of these guys, all they need to do is think about, put yourself as the bear. You are the bear. And some guy, you don't have the availability to a grocery store or go out and hunt your food real easy. So kind of what that guy provides to you is what you get, but yet you can be selective that, hey, I don't have to eat that because I can walk a mile this way and find another bait to eat off of, and maybe it's something different. So I find that variety is king. And the biggest reason I think variety is king is because just like people, all bears aren't the same. Have a birthday party for a kid, invite 20 kids over and get Chuck E. Cheese or Pizza Hut or something, and there's going to be 1 or 2 kids in that group that don't like pizza. So then you got to go to Subway or corn dogs or whatever as an alternative. And then bears are the same. Most of them like the same things, but you still get that odd one here and there that, you know, 8 of my 9 bears I have coming just die for, just sugared gummies, we'll say. They love it. But then there's that one that don't. And if you don't give him an alternative that he likes, he'll move on to the next spot. He'll go find another bait. And there's plenty of people baiting in the area that they don't have trouble finding a second bait.
Not only that, but do you want to eat hamburgers every day?
No, and you know, go back to the T-bone steaks and lobster tails. You could eat them 2, 3, 4 days in a row and love it. On day 5, you'll be looking for a hot dog or something different, you know, just because you're sick of it. And that's where we like to have a variety. I get people that come in all the time and say, just give me 8 barrels of cookies. Okay, yeah, I will. I'll do that if you want, but if you want to take any suggestion from me, get 4 barrels of cookies and 2 barrels of something different, 2 barrels of something different to make your 8, but keep a variety to it. You know, most of the time people are very receptive. Sometimes you got, you know, them guys that have been doing it a while, they got their way and it's worked for them, and they say good enough, and then they just go with their own rigmarole, and that's fine too. Just always like to go a little further and try to help rather than just load stuff in your truck, take your money, and see you later. Because we have found that through the years, the customers that are successful in their hunts, every one of them's calling me, every one of them sends me a picture. There's a personal thing there where that help and that advice, whether it really made the hunt for them or not, they certainly feel like it does, and it became a successful hunt, so they're ecstatic. The principle of going out of my way to help people with this is, who wants to be you if you came in and spent $500-600 on bait, you baited all summer, you got 5,000 wood ticks and 200 mosquitoes. Nobody wants to be that person if they've never seen a bear.
Yeah, when you said about how you were doing your bait systematically for the time of the year, it rang a bell with me, because I've noticed that I do a mix, and I notice they eat more of the protein when it gets closer to season.
Absolutely.
So I started like ramping up on nuts and stuff closer to season. And going a little more away from the sweets, but I keep the sweets in there, but just less of them.
100%.
But,
that's that 80-20 ration that I run 80% filler, 20% nutritional all summer, and then I flip that. And it's for that reason. Because that's, especially in the farm country here, people just, a high percentage of people will lose their bears. You can have 10 bears coming to a bait, and as soon as that biological switch goes off, they transition. They transition from garbage mode to fat mode. And it's 100% their biology, the way they're built and how their system works, and that's never going to change. So you can either choose to go with them and up your odds of harvesting, or B, go against them. You're not going to turn out all that great in this, especially in the farmland. There's too much for them to eat between the corn, the soybeans, you know, the natural grasses and plants and everything else they consume. People think that bears are chasing white-tailed deer through the hills every day, and that's where they're getting their food. Not many do. They kill a lot of fawns because they are the only animal that can smell these fawns fresh. A bear's nose is just unbeatable. There's nothing about it you're going to do to beat it. In fact, when I hunt, I don't even worry about scent control. Not at all. Doesn't bother me one bit. If I've been in Canada for 3 days without a shower, I don't care.
Yeah, they're going to smell you anyway.
They're going to smell you. I don't care if I dip you in iodine and helicopter you to your tree. They're going to smell you. You're going to stink like a rotting carcass on the tip of your own nose to them at a half a mile.
Yeah, I've seen studies where they go 10 miles to get to a roadkill.
50 miles they can smell water.
Yeah.
Figure that.
It's insane, yeah.
How do you do that?
I've seen the studies. It's insane how far they can smell.
The polar bears, and not that I want to shift into polar bears right now, but the polar bear's nose is even better. And I just got done on a hunt for that, and and actually there's a crack. The glaciers will crack, and that'll leave a water void. Well, the seals will come up for that water. And they say that these polar bears, and of course I don't have 35 years into them, but they say that they can smell that seal under the water 50 miles away. And then they head to that ice heave where there's open water, and they just sit there and they smell the seal and get to the spot where he's about to come up, and they grab him, pull him out of the hole. And
50 miles is hard to believe, but I've seen they find bodies in lakes now.
Yeah.
With cadaver dogs.
You bet.
They take the boat across the lake, and the dog will sound when it goes over the body.
Yeah, and that goes. You can take that back even further and kind of re-solidify how good their olfactory is. If you looked at tracking dogs, you know, your bloodhounds are notorious for this. They had a really good nose, but somebody abducts a kid and takes off driving a certain direction. The scent molecules that blow out of that truck where that kid was, they can track that kid 20, 30, 40 miles in the ditch, following them scent molecules. And that's a bloodhound. A black bear is 8 times the olfactory of a bloodhound.
Yeah.
So if you can fathom how that dog can do that, the black bear is 8 times better. It's...
Yeah, a bear smells way better than a deer.
Oh.
And think about how well a deer smells. I mean, I've many times noticed a deer pick up my ground scent 10 feet from where I was walking downwind.
Sure.
They smell where my scent floated onto the grass.
And a deer's nose is great. It don't even come close. It's not even
Right.
in the top 50 compared to a bear.
Right.
It really isn't. So, you know, at some point, understanding the mechanics of a bear and how they work and why they do certain things, it helps you be a better bear hunter, because instead of questioning every decision, you know, like, should I do this? Should I do that? What I found, the simple answer to me is every single time, if I go back and say, I live in the wild, I live off the land, what would I do? Why would I do it? And how would I do it? And I find that answer is almost always what a bear is going to do. But you have to break yourself down to being more primitive and thinking a little deeper than most people. But the answer is always simple. It's very seldom a complex answer. It's always, if you just broke it down, laid in bed, you know, watching TV for 20 minutes, and just put your thought into, okay, I'm that bear. Why would I not go here, or why would I go there? Why would I bed here? Why would I not bed here? Why would I eat here? Why would I not? And them answers are almost exactly the same as what a bear is going to think. And that's, I really think our success has been a lot of the attribution I can put toward it is toward thinking deeper than most everybody else has. And I think people get, you know, I don't know enough about it to get that. No, you really do.
I think your average person just thinks you pour out a pile of bait anywhere and bears come.
They do. And you know what, that can be successful. But do you want to be that guy that hinges all your time, work, and money on 10% success, or do you want the guy that wants 90% success?
When we're hunting northern Minnesota, I noticed that I'm out hunting all the other people, all the other guides, you know, and I'm getting multiple bears, and when they get them, they're all little.
Yeah.
You know, you can get a little bear to come into bait anywhere because they can smell it forever.
Pretty much.
But the bigger ones, those are the ones you have to have the placement right. You have to, you know.
And people forget that. That's a thing I've been preaching for 20 some years now, is everybody says, you know, where do I put the bait? Where do I put the bait? And I said, before you put the bait anywhere, go pick your tree. Go pick your travel patterns. I mean, yeah, you can't always predict how a bear is going to enter and exit a bait before they've done it a bunch. But typically I will find a spot, and you can move a baiting stump, you can't move a tree. So I will find the area, the spot I know I want to be in, and I'll kind of adjust my bait 20, 30 yards this way, whatever it has to be, according to, okay, there's a west wind tree, there's a northwest wind tree. You know, I got options as far as a tree stand set then.
I really like going out in springtime, just like I do for deer, and scouting when there's no leaves and stuff.
Yeah, well, you
and
see the terrain better.
yeah, you can see the terrain perfect. You can get the stand in the perfect position, where it's hard to do when you do that in the fall.
Right. Well, you can't see very far, you know, and that's also the scenario for picking your tree. You know, maybe that's what you were alluding to. You pick your tree this time of year, you can really see what it's going to look like. If you wait till June to do that, you know, you can't see nothing. And then all of a sudden it's, oh shit, you know, that bait's been here all summer in that spot, but I got to move 80 or 100 yards that way. That bear will typically follow that bait, but you've already acclimated him to that spot, every twig, every rock there. You know, every situation.
Yeah, you're going to freak them out a little bit.
It is. It's changed. Put a new dresser in your bedroom tonight, and you don't know about it. You crawl in bed tomorrow, and you're going, "What the hell?" I mean, you notice it immediately. And just the same, that's part of baiting, especially in Wisconsin for our long baiting season that we have, is you're able to habituate them to a scenario that they've done 100, hopefully 200 times by then, and everything has been good. You know, they know their surrounding, they know how to enter and exit, they know what other bears to expect to have to fight off or compete with. Thinking about it in 3 stages, I think, is how I see it. I'll locate my spots. Sometimes we'll look at a lot of maps for customers on properties I've never been on, but usually you can pick a pretty solid spot out. Sometimes I got to ask a few questions, like, is there pressure over here? How can you enter and exit here? Is it convenient? Is it easy to get on and out of? That's another thing. Everybody's like, I suppose I got to walk with everything. No, drive your damn four-wheeler right to it.
So a guy that wants to get some bait and he wants to get some advice, how does he get a hold of you?
Probably the easiest way for the average guy is just to go online. If you look up Trophy Adventures Bear Bait, pop up real easy.
So you got a website, right?
Yeah, trophyadventuresbait.com. And then cell phone number 715-896-0820. Write it down if you think you need something. We can ship anywhere speedy delivery goes. We can ship fairly economical. I like people in person just because they can see everything, make some choices for themselves. We can evaluate volumes, like how much do we think you need, which is a lot of just simple math. The area you're hunting, it's just a personal experience, way better than just going online and making a phone call, giving me a credit card number.
And for guys in Minnesota or Wisconsin, you're kind of centrally located, right north of Black River Falls.
Yeah, we're west of Black River, 20 minutes.
Okay.
And north of La Crosse, probably 45 minutes. Right between Eau Claire and La Crosse, halfway. So that's...
West, my other north.
Yeah. Well, there's only 4 of them.
Right.
They all start with a orth. So yeah, getting into some of the bait that we typically carry, and it varies. I mean, we got different stuff all the time, but kind of one of the staples that we do a lot of is cookies. The cookie mixes are always good filler. They're real easy to work with. Guys,
Is this cookies here?
Yeah, all the white barrels here are cookies. Some of the caramel stuff you'll see over here. This right here is what I think is probably the most attractive bear stuff I've ever seen. And these are all caramel sleeves. It's actually the caramel they put on top of your little foo-foo drinks at Starbucks. This is dynamite stuff. I don't know that I've ever seen anything they like that.
So you get a tube of caramel. How do you use that?
Well, it depends. Sometimes I just bite the end off and I squirt it all in my mouth. Other times I'll squirt it on the bait. And that's really, in all seriousness, that's all I do is I usually just strip the corner back, bite that corner off, and these flow really well when it's warmer. And then I'll just squeeze it down over the top of the bait.
So then I kind of like getting that stuff in the inside of the log so they have to work for it.
I try to avoid that a little bit just because then they tend to start chewing on your stumps.
Oh, okay.
If anybody's ever carried a big stump in.
I do get my stumps chewed up quite a bit.
Yeah. And people soak them in grease now and then. I got some guys that'll soak their stumps in grease. There's a point to it to keep it from rotting, but the problem is when the bears start eating on it, they're going to rot it for you in 2 nights. So in the end, I'll let it rot and take 5 years. So I typically don't like to coat my stumps with nothing. Now, what I will do is I'll typically cut a pie plate, typically 2 or 3 inches thick, put that on the bottom. My hollow stump will sit on top of that, and then another flat plate on top, and then I use a biggest heavy rock I can find. Flatter the better. And I set that on. That keeps the coons and everything else out of the bait. The only thing getting in there is the bear. This, I will dump some of this over the top of that rock just for the initial, oh God, we got caramel, it's exciting. Before people start going and say, oh, it's exposed bait. No, it's a liquid. The liquid is not considered a bait. So I do put these on the trees. I'll squirt them up and down the trees. Canada, I really pull this trick a lot. I've got a crotch of a tree at the base that's almost got like a football size hole in it. So it's just like a perfect little bowl almost. And I'll take 1 or 2 of these and I will squirt them right in that hole. Because what it does is that bear's got to come around that tree. And if he's a bear I want to shoot, that's the first thing he's going to eat every time he comes in. 100 out of 100 bears are going to lick that pile up first. And I've seen hundreds of them up there do it. What I've kind of found is it makes them come around the tree for 1. 2, typically I'm going to get a good quartering shot or a good broadside shot with that bear faced away from me. He's not faced my direction because he can't eat on this side of the tree from the other side of the tree. So it presents him really well. The second thing that I really like is it gives me a minute or two of that bear sitting in one spot where I can really judge him versus him walking all over, you know, and doing big bear stuff where they typically don't commit. They'll circle around and walk through the bait a few times. That caramel seems to draw them and put them in a spot where if I want them dead, they're dead, without question. So that is a big, big favorite of mine. In fact, I don't want to even hunt without it. Honey roasted peanuts. So these are going to contain the nutritional value that we're seeking, as well as they taste good. So this one's kind of got some of both. Them are good. Them are really good. Are you scared to eat them? I know I'm not. But great, great nutritional stuff right here. It tastes good as well as nutritional. Yeah, you liked it, didn't you? More of that. Chocolate pretzels. These are going to be kind of what we call our filler stuff. Just, you know, the guy could throw a half an ice cream pail in your bucket. It just gives them that variety. They're just a chocolate covered pretzel. This is another one of them candy type things that doesn't thrill me a whole lot, but it's filler. They like it. Strawberry licorice. Nothing
Oh, I
great.
can smell that.
Yeah, it's got a great odor to it. That's another thing I guess I'd really like to highlight because I get people all the time smelling the bait. Wow, that smells really strong. That one don't smell very strong. I don't want that one. There's 2 points to a bait site to me that matter. The first is scent. Without scent, a good commercially built attractant scent, if you're trying to use your food as the attractant, you're wiping your ass before you shit.
Yeah.
And that's really what it boils down to. If you use that attractant, that's 20,000 times more potent than any food you're ever going to feed them.
Yep.
So I use that as my lure to get them to the spot.
There's something else to that too. A lot of guys are getting cheap and they use vanilla extract
Yeah.
and stuff like that. It works, but not nearly as good as that
No.
oil-based commercial stuff.
No. And the second thing to that, and I've done this speech a million times, that customer says, just don't worry, I don't need none of that. I'm just going to Walmart and I'm buying them 2-3 ounce jars of liquid smoke.
Yeah.
Well, you start asking them, how much are them 2 ounce jars of liquid smoke you're buying? Well, they're like $7. Okay. How many ounces in a gallon? 128. Oh, well shit. That means I bought 60 bottles at $7 a piece and did not get the results as if you'd have bought that $30 bottle of Gold Rush.
Right.
So they're missing the point.
Do you sell scents too?
Yeah, a lot. We do a ton of scent. And this is just going to be a mixture of a little bit of everything. This is kind of an all-day mixture. You know, you got pecans in here, tons of peanuts, some pretzels, there's cookies, there's strawberry pretzels, Chex Mix. I see there's some M&Ms, raisins. You name it. You know, these are a good blend right here.
So a guy was trying to be economic, he could buy like a mix like this and then still buy something like a little heavier in protein to mix with it.
Yeah, and you could go two directions with that. You could buy something like this that's kind of a complete one and done. Me personally, I do feed this all summer, but this is more of my 20% ration.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stick to things like cookies, lighter, cheaper for the bulk of my food. Because, you know, trail mix gets a lot more expensive than cookies do. And I shouldn't say a lot, but it's 25% more.
Yeah.
Which can add up to a lot in the course
And
of
in
the
the
summer.
warmer months, cookies do real well for me.
They do. Cookies are a good bait. There's nothing wrong with them at all. But I do use this as a nutritional supplement. But I also will have, let's just say, a barrel. And we're looking at totes right here. So it's kind of bigger volumes. But a lot of guys do buy them. But if we got these, let's say the trail mix in a barrel, I will still have a barrel of straight nuts. Like this stuff we just seen.
Mm-hmm.
I want this in my repertoire come August. And the biggest reason is yeah, this has got nutritional value in it, but it's 10%, 20%, whatever it is. They still got to pick through all this stuff to get the peanuts and the cashews and the almonds and the highly nutritious stuff out of this. Versus when I go supplement my bait with pure nuts, I know they're getting what they need. So I when you say use this and then maybe some nutritional, I would use this and some nutritional and some filler together. So I think it's a 3-part process. If you were only going to feed one thing all summer, that's what you want because it's got the variety. You know, he can pick through all that stuff. So variety, you know, I'll never go away from variety. The more things I can offer him that I know are good, more often I'm going to get a bear that says I can't do any better anywhere else. Can't. that's when he stays at your bait all summer. The rut comes around end of May into June. When you get to that timing, a big bear, especially a big bear, and when I say big, I'm talking, you know, anything mature over 5 years, 6, 7 years old, in that 300 to 500 pound range, count on that bear leaving. And everybody gets scared. Oh, I got this big one coming, and all of a sudden, June 1st, he's gone. What did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. That bear naturally is going to go walk 50 to 100 miles looking for sows. Now, I fully expect that he's going to come back, but you probably won't see him come back until probably the end of June and the middle of July. So people get really nervous. They lose their big bears. But then on the other side of that, that big bear that you had, he just walked 50 miles, and now he's at my bait for 2 weeks in a row.
Right.
I'm all jacked up. Holy shit, look at this giant that showed up at my bait. Don't expect him to stay. But if you're doing a terrible job baiting where he came from, and I showed him something, you know, better food, it's consistently there, there's enough for me to eat. A lot of times we've collected them big bears that are just on a walkabout during the rut, and they stay. They don't leave. In fact, school bus in the shop, he was that bear. And we got to get the history and knowledge of where he lived and where he traveled, because he was collared. So we got all the data after we shot him. But that bear was from 50 miles away from here is where that bear was collared and where he lived and where they tranquilized him every year out of the den. Until he got shot at and missed, he moved. He just happened to move here, quarter mile up the road. Well, then we started getting that bear in probably like 2010, 11, somewhere in there. We started seeing this giant that he just was on my baits all the time. Could never kill him until the wife hunted one day, and then he got a hole punched in his lungs. But that was a perfect example. He showed up here just on a walkabout. I think that's all he was doing. And he found my baits, and he's like, wow, this is good food. And up north, they don't typically feed early in the spring like we do. And if I lived up there, I probably wouldn't either, because we don't have to. We're not competing against anything up there. Here, we're competing against the biggest acorn crop probably in the country. Then we're talking soybeans, corn, the natural legumes, everything that they're going to eat. So they got a buffet here. There's no shortage of food for a bear here.
So I love having baits up for June, because when that rut comes,
I want them.
all of a sudden you just get giant boars hitting your baits because they just follow the sows. Because you generally get sows at a lot of your baits.
That's my goal in the spring.
Right. So when you get those sows on those baits, those boars are going to come in June.
Oh, absolutely.
And when they come, what I found is typically they do disappear, but a percentage of them come back at some time in the fall.
They'll come check it again,
Right.
for sure.
And that's if you have a good bait, like you said, because I hear other people say they never come back, and I'm just thinking, you don't bait like I do.
No, and think about the city. And here again, I'm going to revert back to people, because what do people do? It's just like the city. How many people move from the country to the city? Hardly any of them. They all move from the city to the country because the pastures are way greener in the country. There's less people, there's less crime, things are cheaper. And I guess if you don't like being around people much, you don't stay in the city. And I think that bears are the same. If they can leave their home for better pastures, they will, because home don't matter to a bear, especially a male. A sow, it does. A female or a male doesn't matter where he lives, as long as he's getting girls, food, security, and lack of pressure wherever he took up shop. He ain't going nowhere. He may leave for a while, but chances are, unless he finds a better pasture somewhere else, which I don't want him to do. That's why I'm so anal about feeding my bears daily. And what I've kind of learned is I got spots that if I've got a big enough stump, when I can dump full 10 gallons and I've only got 3 bears hitting it, I can usually go 2 days. But I also set my cameras so I can watch. Literally, I'll put my camera high, shine it back down.
So you have a cell cam, and then you know if the bait's gone.
I know how many times them bears have visited, how many different bears have visited, and that tells me, there's only 3 bears in, and all 3 of them were 150-pound bears, so they didn't clean up that 10 gallons in one night. That tells me I can go every 3rd day and bait. Now, that ain't the case all the time. Sometimes I got 7, 8, 10 bears that hit. I know that stump is empty. I'm back out the next day doing it. I don't care if it's hot. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if the mosquitoes are trying to, carry me away. It don't matter to me. I'm not going to let them go without food. And I've had a lot of neighbors that try baiting, but they half-ass it. Once a week, once every 2 weeks. I've actually quit baiting here for the most part, just because I don't want my neighbors to quit or keep failing like they are. And it's the fact they're not putting the work into it.
Right.
That's the end. They're using the right bait.
Yeah.
I know they are because they got it from me, and I know what they're feeding. Same stuff I am.
For me, I mean, now I'm doing public land. It's a little different.
Yeah, it is.
If I stop baiting, or if I only bait weekends, I'll never kill nothing.
No, it's pretty tough.
You got a lot of people competing with you, and a lot of the local people will be baiting a few times a week.
Absolutely.
But if they run out of bait, they don't, I'm trying to get that bear to camp out right next to the bait and guard it. If he runs out of food, he's just going to go to the next bait and guard that one.
Yeah, it's an easy thing. It's just like you get shot at every time you go to the grocery store. You don't go to that grocery store anymore. And when I say shot at, I don't mean like the bear's being shot at all the time. I'm saying that negative interaction and not a positive reward for your effort. Every time they walk up a hill, every time they do anything, if there's not a reward at the end, they're only going to do it a couple times before they change their ways. We don't go to work and say, you don't have to pay me for this week, don't worry about it. We don't do that. If we had an employer that wasn't cutting us a paycheck at the end of the week after we put in our time that we agreed to do and did a good job, if he don't pay us, what are we going to do? Go look for another job.
Right.
He's going to go look for another food source. Right there, you put a negative interaction in his head. And it's just like screwing somebody over. You screw them over once, it's going to be really hard to gain their trust back, if ever. If you do get it back, there's still always going to be that little bit of apprehension in the back of their head.
Yeah.
Is this guy going to burn me again? And that bear, give him that negative interaction, he ain't going to forget it. He might get past it if there's nothing better within his reasonable walk. But when it comes down to it, usually there's something there. Somebody has another opportunity for him. There's another employer willing to hire him. And people miss that boat. They think that I can just, however this feels good to me, I can do it. You can do it that way. It's not a successful method. Jethro, hey. Sit. 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 Good boy. Give me 5. 5. Good boy.
Some people say a buck is made out of meat, antlers and fur and 4 fast feet, a brain that's sharp, a harem of does, and you're sure not going to beat that incredible nose. You hunt for 14 days, and what do you get? 2 weeks older and no buck yet. I was born one day. It was blowing snow. I crawled out of my crib and grabbed my bow. You hunt for 14 days, and what do you get? 2 weeks older, no buck yet. I went hunting in the pouring rain. My daddy said, boy, are you insane? You hunt for 14 days, and what do you get? 2 weeks older, no buck yet. You hunt for 14